Well, following one of our other top story, a potential four-way flashpoint over disputed islands in the Sea of Japan. Japan scrambles fighter jets to intercept Russian and Chinese planes, while South Korea fires warning shots.
We brought you the reports on developments out of South Korea earlier in the hour. Now we cross over for more on this to Ross Cullen in Moscow for the Russian perspective. Tell us, there seems to be some discrepancies between the South Korean and Russian militaries over the incident. What's going on between the two sides, and what is Moscow saying?
Hello to you. Yes, early this morning, South Korean time, we had that response to the incident from South Korea, saying that it scrambled two fighter jets to intercept Russian planes that it believed was violating its airspace. Now, there are similarities to start with. Russia also this afternoon agreeing that two fighter jets were indeed scrambled by Seoul F-16 fighter jets to intercept the Russian planes. But that's where these discrepancies start to come in, as you mentioned. The South Koreans saying that they fired flares and warning shots, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, as a warning to those Russian planes, and the Russians saying that the South Korean fighter jets flew erratically, carrying out dangerous maneuvers, but saying that the security threat, there was never any security threat to those Russian planes, and if there had been, there would have been a quick response. Russia says that the flight plan for those aircraft was going over neutral territory, flying over neutral seas, and not crossing any airspace, not violating any country's airspace. And the flight plan for those aircraft was not aimed at any third parties. It was simply meant to be a training exercise between Russia and China. South Korea says that its airspace was indeed violated over the islands that it calls Dokdo, those disputed islands known as Takeshima in Japanese. South Korea sees as its own and has carried out the imposition of something known as the KADIZ, the Korean Air Defense Identification Zone, which it believes shows that its airspace extends over those islands. Russia says it doesn't recognize that, and the flight plan was over neutral territory, so that's where those main discrepancies lie between the two sides.
Well, there were, conflicting reports. They weren't sure why the Russian aircraft was flying over, but, so it is to say that the Russian aircraft was flying over the region because of training exercises specifically with China. Is that why they were there?
Yes, a specific training exercise that Russia said. The Ministry of Defense have released a statement saying that that was the first such exercise, the first joint patrol between Russian aircraft and Chinese aircraft over this Asia-Pacific region. Specifically, they're looking at aircraft from both sides that are strategic for long-range, long-distance strategic bombing aircraft, carrying out this flight plan together as part of a military cooperation plan. They say it was simply an exercise carried out by both countries, going about this military cooperation plan, going about this aircraft training exercise over neutral territory as part of a plan that, as I mentioned earlier, was not aimed at any third parties and was not aimed to violate any other country's airspace. They say it was simply that training exercise, though admitting it was the first such patrol of its kind that the two countries have carried out together. But it does seem that
Well, we've been speaking there with Ross Cullen in Moscow. We do apologize for the loss of the signal there.